What's up, everybody? This is the Act Man here, and today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. Now, as you can see, my finger looks kind of messed up. That's because it's in a splint because I fractured it. Very small fracture, not a big deal, but it's kind of hard to hold controllers, as wimpy as that sounds. So, instead of doing the normal Halo 2 Legendary No Deaths run, which I'll continue once this feels better, I thought I'd take a look back at my past and look at some of the games I grew up with. The ones that inspired me the most, and the ones that impacted me the most. So, I figured I'll grab some games and kind of go through them and talk about them. What made them special, why I played them, all that. I figured talking about some of these old games, you know, maybe you can relate to them, maybe you didn't know about some of these, or, you know, maybe your childhood was as good as mine with some of the games you played. Could just be a way for you to get to know me better, and what my childhood was like. So, let's jump into this. So I grew up with video games. I've been playing them for a long time, and the earliest memories I have are of Super Mario 64 and Pokemon Blue version, right? These are two classic, great fucking games to start with. Woo! Here we go! Honestly, if you think about it, Pokemon's like the biggest franchise ever, and Mario's the biggest franchise in gaming. So, two revolutionary, really good games to start with, and, you know, I was just one of those kids that grew up with these two classic games, you know? One of them was a sort of collect-em-all sort of thing, RPG. Super Mario 64 is, of course, a 3D platformer. The music for Mario 64 just blew me away. It had a lot of style, charisma, and charm, and to me, set the standard for what Mario games were all about. And just being able to explore a huge world, you know, all these different areas with crazy stuff going on, and just the idea of 3D was insane to me as a kid, right? Because I would take Pokemon on the go, and it's like, okay, well, it's all pixels and stuff. You know, it's not as detailed on the Game Boy, right? Now, this is my Game Boy, and as you can see, I fucked up the screen. I hit it on a corner when I was really mad for some reason, but it's crazy to think we went from this to this, right? It's a pretty big difference, you know? So these two games I must have started playing when I was like 3, 4 years old, something like that. So great classic games, alright? I think what attracted me to Pokemon the most was so many of the designs were like dinosaurs. I mean, you look at Venusaur, Kangaskhan, Charizard. You know, a lot of these Pokemon felt like mythical dinosaurs, like I was in Jurassic Park or something. And as a kid, there's nothing cooler than dinosaurs. To this day, I still play the new Pokemon games. I've never really grown out of it. The Nintendo 64 was, and honestly probably still is, my favorite console, just because of how pure the fun was. You know what I mean? So you know, I could go through all my N64 games, and they're all classics, they're all ones that I grew up with, but Starfox 64 in particular was a really fun-ass game that just stuck out to me because the high scores and the levels and the voice acting, fucking phenomenal, dude.
We need your help, Starfox. Andross has declared war. He's invaded the Lilat system and is trying to take over Corneria. Our army alone can't do the job. Hurry, Starfox!
I loved all the characters.
Let's back up the squadron. Somebody's gonna pay for all this.
You know, we would quote them. And at the very end, when you beat Andross, you get this little scene where all the guys are running across the planet's surface, and when we were super young, we had an old-ass TV, and me and my brother would run alongside the characters, and, you know, just the silly things we did. So Star Fox 64 was great. This is kind of an obscure game, right? Sports games don't really last the test of time. But this is NFL quarterback Club 98.
Today's game is between the Rams and the Bengals.
And it's got Brett Favre on the cover. So that should be an indication to you of how old it is. But this was like my first sports game, so it stuck out to me just because it's just so weird now to compare it to like Madden. honestly, I think it's hilarious. It's hilarious fun because the controls are, I don't want to say terrible, but they're just like, what the hell am I doing sort of thing. So NFL Quarterback was just a fun, kooky game we had. Then, of course, Mario Party 3 and Mario Party 2 and 1, but 3 is without a doubt like the best one, my favorite. The mini games of Mario Party 3 were so damn fun. The maps were interesting, there were so many gimmicks. We had wars over this game. It was so competitive, and to this day, me and my buddies get together and play it like twice a month. Good lord, we had some good times with this one. I really don't need to say much about it. And then of course, Pokemon Stadium 2. Again, we never had the first one, but it's just, Nintendo always had just these classic, pure fun games, and this was another one of those, and it was crazy to think, you know, you go from gold version, silver version, red and blue, and you look at what that looks like, and then you look at Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2, you look at the graphics in those, and it actually, like, visualizes what you imagined all the Pokemon to do and what their moves were, and good lord, that was fun too. That was just crazy to see all the Pokemon in 3D. Something we can now do portably. The house rule was the other player had to leave the room while they chose their Pokemon, so it'd be a surprise, and so the second player couldn't counter them. The mini games were addicting as well. Just an all-around super fun game. Of course, there was Donkey Kong 64, who could forget? Okay. Super Smash Brothers, you know, just another classic. And this one, Virtual Chess 64. What the hell is that, Act Man? You gonna tell me this is a classic out of all the games you got on your shelf? Well, so there's a funny story. When I was growing up, my parents allowed me to play video games kind of whenever I wanted. Most of it was educational stuff, you know, stuff on the computer. So somewhere down the line, my parents thought it would be a good idea to say to me, "Hey, Act Man." And yes, they talked like that, of course, but Act Man, you can only play video games on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The only game you can play on weekdays is chess. You know, because we were doing chess tournaments, so I really didn't want to play chess on a video game. We already did chess tournaments, like we were doing those as kids, so it's like, okay, you know, parents want me to play something that stimulates the mind and whatnot, I get that, but come on, this is like the game I least wanted to play. But looking back, it's still pretty funny. And of course, there was Banjo Tooie. You know, like I said, I could go through all the games on my N64 and why I loved them, what made them special, but, you know, these are the ones that stand out to me when I look at all the games in my collection. So, we were mostly a Nintendo/Xbox type of household, right? We had a PlayStation, but just not that many games for it, and then we never got a PlayStation 2 until much later down the line, but 3 games I very fondly remember from PlayStation 1 is Crash Bandicoot, of course, and Spyro Ripto's Rage. These were both just great games. They were like Nintendo, but different, almost a little bit more cool, you know?
Hi, which way's the beach? Hey, stop staring. Haven't you guys ever seen a dragon before?
And the third one, which I can't find on my shelves, it was Worms Armageddon. Now that one, whoever had the idea of worms shooting bazookas at each other, wow, you sure impressed the hell out of me as a kid. I was addicted to that shit, man. Worms Armageddon. Now the only thing that bugged me about the PlayStation, and it still bugs me to this day, is it was only 2-player, right? So we would have 4 people playing Worms Armageddon, and we'd have to switch controllers. It's like, dude, just have 4. Just have 4 controller ports. But, you know, the original PlayStation was great. It wasn't as big in my house and my circle of friends as the Nintendo 64, GameCube, Xbox, you know, that sort of stuff. But it still had a place every now and then. So, moving on, or moving backwards in time, My very first experience with computer games that I can remember is like stuff like Lego Island.
I'm the pizza delivery dude, the dude with the food.
And it was pretty janky to control, but, you know, the voice acting in that too was great.
Welcome to Lego Island.
You know, we used to play with Legos, and so just the idea of a Lego video game. I think, honestly, I don't have the case for Lego Island, but Lego Island 1, I think, was the first Lego video game, like legit. And so, you know, now they're fucking making movies about Legos and Lego Batman, and that's kind of crazy to think about. But another game that I've never heard of really much at all outside of, you know, my family and my household was Hoyle board games. Now, this was actually pretty cool because it had all these different board games and it had characters that said funny shit. You know, there was like a T-Rex named Marvin.
I need reclassification as a Ledosaurus Rex.
There was an alien named Roswell. All these different characters and you know, you just learned how to play all these different board games like Chinese checkers, backgammon. I mean, you name it. It's, you know, it's not the most classic of classics. I don't think a whole lot of people remember it or even played it, but it was really cool. You know, board games were fun, and to be able to play them on your computer with other characters that said funny things, well, what more could a kid ask for? So yeah, you know, my parents were kind of big on like those educational games, the chess on the Nintendo, the board games on the computer, the, you know, the other educational games on computer. But a game that kind of fell into that category, but not really, was also Roller Coaster Tycoon. Mostly talking about the first one. For whatever reason, number 2's in here, but Roller Coaster Tycoon number 1, it was so bizarre because out of all these other games I've been playing, the goal is to, you know, kill your opponent, kill your opponent's Pokemon, take their pieces in chess, tackle the quarterback. It's always like attack, kill, you know, destroy, or get to the end of the level sort of thing in every game. But here comes something, Roller Coaster Tycoon, and it's got none of that. And so it just totally flips your expectations around as a kid. You're like, what? I'm building roller coasters in an amusement park? Holy shit. And that was cool. That was really cool. You got to build your own roller coasters. You could drown your fucking guests. You could, you know, feed them. You had all these different tools. It was a great sandbox game that even to this day, you know, is still fun to play and just offers so much variety in how you can build things and, you know, how you want your park to look, and that's just a really cool idea, honestly. So, some of the very first computer games I remember playing was the original Starcraft.
Looks like you mashed some poor feather's dog, Sarge.
You know, the games I'm talking about, all of these are in the age of 3 to about 9 years old, right? I was born in 1994, so 1997 to 2003-ish. But Starcraft was just a game brimming with character, and it was dark, but it wasn't too dark for me. Like, the blood and gore, it wasn't like explicit, you know? You got a top-down perspective, all the characters. For whatever reason, I'm just drawn to games that have great voice acting. Starcraft, Starfox 64.
You called down the thunder. Now reap the whirlwind.
I'm just curious, why am I so good?
You know, just feeling like the characters are interesting and the units are interesting.
You will immediately tell me why you have called me from my desk, Private.
Protoss unit, Sarge. Coming through the South Pass. It looks broke.
Kill it!
Because back then, you know, graphics were not as advanced, so you kind of had to use your imagination. But even in Star Fox 64, like, the characters were just 2 frames. Mouth open, mouth closed. But just the idea of StarCraft and commanding units and just sending them out and then watching them kill or die, and like, that was always so entertaining to see how units do against other units, and oh, gotta destroy this base, and oh, I want this outpost here. Just building an army was something that was so cool about StarCraft, of course. And, you know, same thing about Warcraft 2. I'm pretty sure Warcraft 2 came before StarCraft. It's a little bit more retro, a little bit less intuitive, but Warcraft 2 was a great fucking game too. Of course, there was also Brood War, which was somehow even more dark than the original Starcraft. Man, that story blew me away. I fucking loved Phoenix and Raynor, Kerrigan.
The color awaits me, Kerrigan. And although I am prepared to face my destiny, you'll not find me easy prey.
Then that shall be your epitaph.
All these different guys, Tassadar, you know, and it blows my mind that I'm still playing StarCraft to this day. Like, I recently played custom games, and there's still people playing this game from my childhood that I first played when I was like 5 years old. That's insanity right there. That's crazy. That should tell you everything you need to know about how good of a game this is when people are playing it 15 years later. Holy shit. More than 15 years. Anyways, one game I have no idea why we had or why we played at this age was Diablo.
Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen.
What the fuck, parents? Why did you get this for me? I mean, I loved it, it's great, but Jesus, it scared the crap out of me as a kid. And the difference between this and StarCraft, you know, when units die in StarCraft, there's a little blood, you know, an explosion, but in this, it's like blood is everywhere, there's bodies, you're fighting demons, the music is creepy and scary, and my brother and I were fucking terrified of the Butcher in Diablo, because he killed you so fast. But not only that, his room was just filled with corpses and bodies. It was like, I'm not going in there. I know that's the Butcher. I'm not going in there. Just a funny little story about this game is, you know, my brother's 3 years older than me, so he was a bit more mature to handle it. And so he was playing it one day, and he got to the part with the Butcher, and he opened the door, and I was just watching him, like, fight that Butcher, like, kill him, you know, and he opens the door, fresh meat. And that scares the crap out of you, but, you know, my brother was fighting, he was gonna win, and then he did it, and he was so fucking happy about killing the Butcher, he ran downstairs as fast as he could, and screamed at my mom, I killed the Butcher, Mom! I killed the Butcher! Those types of accomplishments, as kids, they meant the world to us. Being able to have an audience and share these types of stories, whether people care or not, if you watch the video, then hopefully you care, hopefully it's entertaining, you know, but it brings warmth to my heart to know that I can share these memories with people and that I have an audience to do that. So thank you. But I still consider the original Xbox and the early games to be part of this, you know, games that made up my childhood and impacted me the most. So, of course, Combat Evolved. I mean, no question. Me and my brother played the shit out of this game. You look at the disc, it is scratched to hell. I don't even know why that sticker's there. I really don't know. And you know, Combat Evolved was like that same tremendous feeling of Mario 64's open worlds and freedom and 3D, but it was like new, like the Xbox, you know, was so freaking cool at the time. It was like, this is the console for cool people. And, you know, at the time I was in like first grade, and, you know, it was still bloody and terrifying, but not so horrific that it destroyed me as a kid or anything.
Coming here was reckless. You two know better than this. Thanks.
You know, and this was my first game with like 2 analog sticks, my very first shooter, because I never played GoldenEye, and so I absolutely sucked. Man, I sucked at Combat Evolved so bad. The first time I played it, I went to my brother's friend's house, and they had the Duke controllers, and I could barely fucking hold it as a kid. If I wanted to shoot, I had to lift my hand up and shoot like that. I had to take all my hands off the buttons to shoot. And the analog stick, because my hands were so small and the controller was so big. I remember that just being like, why is this so huge? That's what she said. But I mean, I talk about Halo games all the time, and you know, this was just the one that me and my brother could play endlessly. Like, we could replay the levels as many times as we wanted and just not get tired of them. But anyways, to quickly wrap this up, there was Fusion Frenzy on the original Xbox.
Fusion Frenzy!
Like Munch's Odyssey, just these kind of cool new you know, Jet Set Radio Future, kind of hip games. I don't know how to describe them, but the Xbox was just such a cool console. And, you know, there was a lot of those games that I remember. And my very first, like, open world game was Morrowind. We had no fucking idea. Me and my buddies, we had no fucking idea what we were doing in this game. We would just, like, run into houses and murder people, but they would, like, punch us, and we had knives, and we couldn't figure out why this person who was just punching us killed us faster than we could with a freaking knife or a sword. We didn't understand the mechanics of the game at all. I mean, I think we barely got out of that starting area. We would, you know, run around and explore and stuff, but we had no fucking idea what we were doing or the patience to, like, read the quests or letters or whatever. We just explored around, got cool items, and killed people. And then finally, there's Gauntlet Dark Legacy. Now, this was just one of the best 4-player games out there, honestly. Like, we had so much fun grinding this game and trying to beat all the bosses, and, you know, if you ever played these, you probably saw them in an arcade, but it's just such a great arcadey type game, and to have it and be able to play it with 4 players without having to constantly put quarters in the machine, you know, that was great. Oh, one last thing. Goosebumps.
The Scarecrow walks at midnight.
This game scared the fucking shit out of me too. I don't know what's with these, you know, games that just scared me so much as a kid, but this was one of them. And it had like real actors. There was like a sewer part where there were these monsters chasing you, and that was horrifying. As a kid, it was like, not going down there. Not going in to see the butcher, not going down in the sewers in this. You can see designed for Microsoft Windows 95. I don't know if you guys can see it, but that's what it says right there. So, you know, pretty old ass game, but another one that it was super cinematic and kind of made me appreciate storytelling, and, you know, they had like real actors. And
I walk once more to open the door of the old barn teeming with bats.
You know, all this stuff is cool. So, you know, hope that gave you a taste of the games I grew up with. I chose those games to showcase and talk about because they're the ones I most remember from like my early years of video gaming, the ones that stuck out to me to most. Fuck, I screwed up that sentence. The ones that stuck out to me the most. And, you know, there's plenty of other games I could have talked about, but that just gives you a taste of what my childhood was like, and, you know, the games that impacted me and the ones I grew up with. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Why don't you share, let's say, your top 5 most important games from your childhood, or if you didn't play games as a child, whenever you first started playing them, like what were the games that stood out to you the most and impacted you and really got you into this hobby like it did to me? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That's all I got for today. This is the Act Man signing out. Peace!